afternoon, Algebra 1. Tonight's lesson is going to be all about solving two-step equations, okay? Which is actually going to be really similar to solving one-step equations, obviously, just with an extra step added on. Alright, so now let's go ahead and, just before we jump into this, let's review solving a one-step equation. Alrighty? So, let me put a little shade up here, because I don't want you to look ahead, even though you probably have already looked ahead. There we go. Alright, so if I have 5 times x equals 120. Alright, so remember with one-step equations, the first step I told you to do was to figure out what's your operation, right? What operation? Okay? And of course, in this case, our operation, 5 times x, so it's multiplication. Okay? And then remember that I told you the step 2 is to do what? Exactly. Find out what is the inverse of your operation. And the inverse of multiplication is, good, you should have said division. Alrighty? So now, and then we need to figure out, remember the model that I told you for most of, or in this case, all of our problems, we want to make sure that our variable, our unknown number, is on the left side, and we want to make sure that all of our answers, meaning our numbers, on the right side. So in order to keep this order, we need to figure out who is going to move. Alright, so who moves? And in this case, we're not talking about a person, we're talking about an actual number. So which number is going to move in order to keep all the variables on this side and all the answers on that side? Well, this is a variable, this is a number. He's on the wrong side. Exactly, the 5 needs to move. Alright, so in keeping with this, what we're going to do, since we have 5 times x, we're going to do the inverse of multiplication, which is division. So we draw a little division line. We know that the 5 needs to move, so I'm going to divide by 5. Those two cancel out. Now, if we add a fourth step, which I think is pretty good to add this one, don't forget to do on both sides. Alright? So if I divide by 5 on this side, I divide by 5 on that side. And 120 divided by 5 is, give it a few seconds. Good, 24. I know it was quick, right? Quick, not a lot of time to solve that one. Alrighty, so now let's look at this next one. We have x divided by negative 3 equals 12. Alright, so if we're going to do our steps again, let me erase our old answers, because we're going to have new answers. Okay. Oops, there we go. Alright, so here we go. Change pen colors. So what is our operation? Well, if I read it correctly, x divided by negative 3 equals 12. I know I heard the word divide by. Okay? The inverse of division is, exactly, multiplication. And in order to get this order, variable and answers, right, who's going to move? Exactly. It's the 3 that needs to move. In this case, it's a negative 3, actually. Alright, so that means I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 3. So times negative 3 times negative 3. And of course, the two negative 3's cancel out because they're inverse. And 12 times 3 is what? 36. And of course, we know our answer is going to be negative. So we know that x equals, and I should have put an x equals up here. X equals 24 up there. Sorry about that one. And so x equals a negative 36. Alright, now let's try one little tricky problem, and I can get rid of my screen. Alrighty. Yes. Notice this guy is all flipped around. Now, of course, if this just makes total sense to you and you can solve it this way, you can actually leave it in this order with the variable second and the number first. But, maybe you can't see how it goes, maybe this confuses you a little bit. So guess what? We're going to use one of those properties. You remember the properties? Alright, so which property allows me to switch these numbers? If you said commutative, then you are absolutely correct. Alright, so this m, I'm going to put him on this side. And I know that he's positive, so I don't need to put a negative or anything in front of him. This negative 2, don't forget to carry the negative with him. It's going to go behind, so negative 2. And then I simply just rewrite the rest of it. There we go. Alright, so these are the same exact problems. Just commutative property of addition. I just swapped it around. Now I can solve. So I do step 1, right? Remember step 1? Okay, let's erase our old answers. And I know you're saying, why are we going over this? But I guarantee you this is important to understanding tomorrow's lesson. All right, so what operation is this? Yes, it's subtraction. What is the inverse of subtraction? Addition. Who's going to move so that we have our model? Variables on one side, answers on the other. Well, let's look. It's that 2. He's on the wrong side. Specifically, a -2. He needs to move away. Alrighty, so let's begin. Our inverse, as we said, is a 2. Is addition. So I'm going to add 2 on this side and add 2 on that side. Remember, both sides. So on this side, they cancel out, and I'm left with simply m. Alrighty. And then what is 23? In this case, it's -23 plus 2, but we know that it's basically subtraction, 23 minus 2. Exactly. You have a -21. So m equals -21. So how does that feel so far? That should be just easy review. All right, now let's go ahead and get on to our new problems, okay? So we have two-step equations. If you look at these 3 problems, and I think there's a 4th one. Yep, there's a 4th one. You'll see that we have, well, let's just jump in. All right, so we have 7 times x plus 27 equals 48. Now remember, we want to keep the same order in terms of we want variables. Oops, no. So variables on the left side, and we want answers, also, numbers on the right side. Okay, that's what we want. We want to keep this same order. This is our model. Okay, this is what we hope to achieve with each and every answer. So our answer in this problem is going to read x equals, and we'll eventually get 1. All right, so that means I need to move a 27, and I need to move 7. All right, so if I were to make a step for this, I would say step 1, you need to identify who needs to move. Okay, so it's almost like this right here, right? Who moves? But in this case, we do the who moves first. That way, we can determine the proper steps, okay? So who needs to move on this one? Well, I need to move the 27, and I need to move that 7 out of the way. All right, so we know that the operation for the 27 is addition, right? So we said who moves, right? All right, so step 2, what's the operation? What's that operation? Well, for the 27, that's addition. Okay, we can see that because it's positive. And for the 7, however, 7 times x, that's actually multiplication. Makes sense so far? Now, what is the inverse of each of these? 3, inverse. Well, the inverse for addition is subtraction. The inverse for multiplication is division. All right, so now here comes the interesting part, and it's actually not really tricky. This is all you have to remember. When you go to do this, when you go to solve these problems, and you say, okay, which one am I going to do the inverse of first? Always start with the digit that doesn't have a variable. In that case, it's the 27. He doesn't have a variable. He needs to be moved first. Let me tell you why we're going to move him first. Do you remember that I said that the inverse of 7 times x would be division? Do you know that if I went ahead and divided first, I would have to divide this guy by 7, this guy by 7, and that guy by 7. Now, for these two, that's easy. For this one, it would give us a decimal, and then we would have to subtract by a decimal. It's going to be a mess. So guess what? Let's just keep it simple. All right, keep it simple, and let's do the number that doesn't have a variable first. All right, there we go. So let's do it the right way. So we said 27 is addition. The inverse is subtraction. So subtract 27, both sides, don't forget. All right, so these cancel out, and I'm left with simply 7x. Alrighty, bring down my equals. And now here's the next question. What is 48 minus 27? All right, 8 minus 7, 1, 4 and 2, 2. So we have 21. How does that feel so far? Good. Alrighty. Now, we said that the operation of the 7 is multiplication, and the inverse of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 7. That cancels. Divide by 7. So we have x equals, what's 21 divided by 7? Good, 3. So our answer is x equals 3. Alright, of course, we would double check, make sure we didn't lose any of our negatives or positives. It's horrible to lose a sign. Alright, so here we go. Let's do this one. We have 2 times a minus 16 equals negative 22. Alright, so step 1. Who moves? Right? Who moves? Well, we know that in order to keep our special order, variables on the left, answers on the right, we need to move the 16, right? And we need to move the 2. Alright, now the operations, right? Operations, my little abbreviation. For the 2 is 2 times a, so for the 2, our operation is multiplication. For the 16, our operation is subtraction. Okay, what is going to be our inverse? What's our inverse? Well, the inverse for multiplication is division. Inverse for subtraction is addition. Alrighty, now let's keep going. In this in a few. We may not get to these last 2 problems, but don't worry. If I don't, we'll catch it in class. Alright, so here we go. Remember, start with a number without a variable. The inverse of subtraction is addition. Add 16. Add 16. Alright, these 2 cancel. I'm left with 2 times a equals. Alright, let's work that out. Now, do you see that's a negative? So basically, we're going to subtract. Alright, so 2, 1, 12, 6, 0, so 6. So 2a equals 6. The operation for 2 times a, the inverse is division, so I'm going to divide by 2. Divide by 2 on both sides. Those 2 cancel out, and I have a equals, what's 6 divided by 2? Good, 3. Alrighty, now, both of these problems, you say, oh my gosh, Miss Braggs, you're trying to kill me with these. No, they're actually quite fun once you learn it. And I guarantee once you do learn it, you won't be as scared of it or as nervous about it. Let's see, we're about 12 minutes in. So I think we have enough time to get these finished. At least do this third one, right? Alright, so here we go. Let's do our same steps. Looking at x divided by 8 minus 9 equals negative 6. Let's put some shade up real quick. Not to be confused with our new popular word, throwing shade. Alright. Get that out of the way so we don't see those other things. Alright, so here we go. We ask the question again. Who moves in this problem? Well, we have an 8 that needs to move to the other side. When we have a 9 that needs to move to the other side. What's the opposite of division? Good, multiplication. What's the opposite of subtraction? Oh, that's a good one. I skipped a step, didn't I? Excuse me. Jumping ahead. What is the operation in this problem? Well, we have x divided by 8. So that's division. And do you see this one here? That's subtraction. So our operation for the 9 would be subtraction. Now, what is the inverse? The inverse of division is multiplication. And the inverse of subtraction is addition. Alrighty, so we begin. Remember, move the number that doesn't have a variable. Our inverse being addition, we're going to add 9. Add 9. Those 2 cancel. We're going to have x divided by 8 equals, now of course this is easy math. What is 9 minus 6 or negative 6? What's 9? Exactly, 3. Alrighty. And then we know for our 8, our inverse operation is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by 8. Multiply by 8. These 2 cancel out. I'm left with an x. equals, what is 3 times 8? Good, 24. Alrighty, that is our answer on that one. And now our very last problem. Very last problem. Okay, let's solve this and then we'll be finished. Alright, erase our old data, or old information, I should say. There we go. So we have 2 times x divided by 9 equals 36. First things first, in a problem like this, it is important to keep the steps in order. Alright, so who's going to move? Well, we have a 2 and we have a 9. So I know we have a 2, we have a 9. Now, what operation goes with the 2? Well, that is 2 times x, so that's multiplication. And this is divided by 9, so that is division. What's the inverse? Opposite of multiplication is division. The inverse of division is multiplication. Now you say, well, Miss Braggs, which one doesn't have a variable? Well, the 2 is connected to his variable, but that 9 is not. So we're going to start with a 9. So according to our little chart right here, 9 is division. His inverse is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by 9. Alright, multiply by 9. That cancels out, and we're left with 2x on this side. And then we have to do 36 times 9. Alright, and with 36 times 9, we know the answer is exactly 324. Alright, so I have 324. Let's make that into an equal. Now we look at our 2. The 2 needs to move. According to our little chart right here, 2 is multiplication, inverse is division. So I need to divide by 2, divide by 2. Alrighty, this is not too bad, right? So these two cancel out, and I'm left with an x on this side. And 324 divided by 2, when you divide those, we know that 2 goes into 32 16 times, and 2 goes into 4 twice. So our answer is x equals 162. Alrighty, so we will go over this again on Monday. I would suggest watching this. Now, typically, with me, I say do your homework first on Friday. I do suggest you watch it Friday, but I also suggest you watch it Sunday. So if I would give you a good suggestion, I would say make sure you watch this video as close to Sunday as possible. That way it'll be fresh in your mind for Monday when we actually do this. Alrighty, I hope you enjoy it. And yes, I know this is a long video. Hopefully the other ones won't be as long. But again, as you already know, I can't guarantee that. Alright, I hope you have a wonderful night. Good night.